Behind the net, centers, flat, tries to Clark, shot, oh, rebound, score! Score for the game winner at 12 minutes and 1 second of Sunday.
TheFourthPeriod.com presents the O&B Puckcast, episode number 86. Are the Flyers on the brink of being eliminated from the conference semifinals and ultimately the NHL playoffs? I'm going to take that up and a lot more with our panel, which will be changing throughout the night perhaps. But my name's Isaiah. I'm your host. And I'm here with my partner, Chef B, at least.
Yep, a little disappointed. Hope we can get a little more spirit out of the boys for the next game tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about these 4 games. Obviously, we're going to lean a little bit more on what has been happening lately. But there's a clear pattern of what's been happening throughout this series. I think people are no longer in denial about what they're seeing. And we're also going to get into some other things with our special guest, Amy Johnson from the AHL Report and Rocket Sports Media. She'll be along probably in about 20 or 25, and we're hoping that Dan Silver will be able to join us directly. He's got some things going on. It seems like everybody's kind of getting back into the swing of things here. But, yeah, we're going to talk about what's been going on and what this portends going forward. We're going to look at the schedule ahead. We're going to try to talk about how the Flyers can get out of this hole they're in. They're down 3-1 and have been outplayed by a wide margin. And we might get into some sneak peeks about some things, issues that are going to come up as we look toward next season. If the Flyers can't get I can't call it a miracle comeback after 2010, but an unlikely comeback. And then we'll talk about the other series around the league. And then, of course, there's some transactions we want to talk about, some of which affect the Metro Division. So with that, Chef, just give me general impressions of what this series has been as the Flyers face elimination tomorrow night.
Wow. I think when we touched on it at the beginning, before the series even started, everybody outlined what they thought needed to happen, had to happen in order for the Flyers to take this series. And, control the puck was one of them. It's been sporadic at best. And then also one of the big ones that I outlined was the fact that they had to win the battles against the wall. And that was not any more evident than it was in the last minute of the period last night's game. When you sat there and you saw them, they couldn't, for the last 20 seconds of the game, they couldn't even get the puck out of the corner when they outnumbered the Islanders 4-3. So in that respect, the performance was underwhelming. It has been underwhelming, and even like Oscar Lindbaum practicing with the team could not bring this team up to inspire them to come back and perhaps maybe tie the series. I mean, I felt like more so than anything, I felt like the kid.
We lost Chef a little bit, so we'll continue. Wait for him to get back in touch with us here. Okay, so we're back. We had a little technical issue, and we're working on that with the fine technicians here at the O&B studios. And I just thought that if 2/3 of the time the Flyers have been outplayed and only half the time the Flyers were able to match the Islanders, it kind of speaks to why the Flyers are behind. It seems like the Islanders are a better version of the Flyers right now, and kind of what I was worried about. They've had that extra year under Trotz that I think AV needs, and I also think there's some pieces here that have been here for a while that maybe don't fit as well when playing top competition that's at the top of their game. And I see that we have Chef is back. Chef, you were talking about winning those battles along the wall and puck possession, so let you continue there.
Yeah, well, when we previewed this series, and I think we even talked about it the last time Amy was on, was in order for this team to be successful, they need to go north-south on their passing, not so much cross-ice, and they needed to have puck possession in the offensive zone, and they need to win the battle along the boards for the puck. Now, this was so evident the last night's game. Last minute of the play, they had a hard time winning the battles on the boards, and literally for 25 seconds almost, last 25 seconds of the game, they couldn't even get the puck out of the corner when they were up a man, and they outnumbered the Isles in the corner there. It was kind of like, I guess, the tone of the series where, are we is this the best the team is going to be? And the Islanders, like you just said, just a hair better than them. And I'm worried that case might be true.
Well, yeah, the Flyers, obviously, like you said, much better last night, but still, it just hasn't been enough because the factors that we've cited among, many others. I mean, you look at game one where they had a good second period, but other than that, they didn't come out very well. They got shut out 4-0. The next game they come back, they're up 3-1. They blow that lead, and Phil Myers gets a great shot through in overtime that ends a shift that is one of the best shifts they've had in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They're really determined, winning battles, something they just haven't done. And, the Islanders are bigger and more physical than I think we were accounting on in our predictions last week. And I'm not going to gloat that I saw this coming because I didn't think, the team I've been rooting for 50 years is going to win, so I wasn't real happy about that. But I think that it took a lot for the Flyers to win that game, and I thought they were mostly still outplayed in game two.
Now, did you agree that they were still even a little flat last night? Like, this wasn't even the team I saw. And what I'm worried about is this: if Oscar's skating with the team in warm-ups, if that's not enough to inspire you and make you go through a brick wall, and to come out a little flat and a little up and like, I guess more so than anything, I can take a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs, but when it's up and down all game, great shift, horrible shift, great shift, horrible shift. I mean, it seems like we're depending on one line, and I know you have it in your notes. The Lawton line was the best line of the night. Well, yeah, that's scary. The third line should be the third line, and they did a third line job. It's, again, the second and first. The top six players just don't seem to be inspired enough to take the team to the next step, I should say.
Well, yeah, and you're actually talking about the third game when the Flyers lost 3-1, where they take a lead and lose for the first time in 9 contests, are now 8-1 when scoring the first goal, and I think that's since return to play started. But the first 10 minutes in that one, it was good, and that was the best line, and that's okay for a period or a couple periods. But this has been a pattern, and they're just getting outplayed. The Islanders are just better. They have guys that are standing out right now, and who's standing out for the Flyers? At times Carter Hart stood out. At times that line stood out. And remember the shift. It's really been intermittent. It's just sporadic. the Islanders, who's playing well for the Islanders? Oh, well, the star of the series so far is Matt Barzal, right? But Bavillier's been great. Anders Lee's been a rock in front of the net. Brock Nelson's been dangerous. Eberle, who's really up and down. That checking line with Cizikas and Martin and Clutterbuck, who's now back, is playing well. Pajot has stood out. I mean, it's not even. I was worried about the third line matchup. It hasn't even come to that. The Flyers have been thoroughly throttled in this series until last night, and then what do we look at? And we'll get a deeper analysis from Amy, but for me, it's like they really put it together in the second period. It's probably their best period of hockey since they came back. This whole thing, they were all over the puck. They neutralized the Islanders' forecheck. They were getting out of the zone, and now they were the ones. So that's the one thing the Flyers haven't been able to do, get out of the zone. They can't get their forecheck going. It's like such a struggle to get out because the Islanders are doing overloading techniques and other things, and it just seems like, at one point, one of the analysts was saying, I think it was Keith Jones or somebody else, that the reverse is there for the Flyers. Is that something that AV should be employing to get away from this overloading and aggressive forecheck that the Islanders are employing? So, and then of course, we come to last night, and the Flyers are down 2-1, and even though they're down 2-1, and only down 2-1, it seemed like they were down more because of how slanted the ice has been. So last night, it's a back-to-back. So we see Elliott and we see Thomas Greiss. And, the Flyers had this game, and then there was some kind of funky shift. There was this funky communication breakdown between Elliott, who hadn't been playing, of course, and his defense. And that sparks a really good shift and a bit of a turnaround for the Islanders, who never really lost control of the game from there on in.
Yeah, and Niskanen and Provorov are not playing full potential, not even close. I mean, Niskanen, to me, he's been like everybody's rags on the fact that Thompson gets to play, Grant gets to play, even Hay gets to play. Everybody is harping on that. Well, guys, guess what? Our top pairing hasn't been that great. To me, they're functioning at like 60%. There's times I sit there and look and go, like Provorov, 2 unassisted, what do you call it, giveaways, and he just, unforced, yeah. I mean, just boom. I'm like, where was that puck going to? Now, I get it. When you're the team that has like the face-off centers that they have, they can afford to ice it here and there. And when they want that break, you ice it, and then you hope that, more than hope, you got a 62% chance or whatever it is that the Flyers are going to win that face-off, and then you can clear a puck. But face-offs, they weren't. I didn't see that they were doing that pretty good yesterday on them either. And the fact that your top D pairing has been bad, and throw in Travis Sanheim, who hasn't been all that great either. Maybe it's playoff jitters. Maybe it's something else. Maybe everybody's playing a little banged up. Montreal was a lot tougher than we thought they were going to be, and I think it's more. There's more than enough places to lay blame. Everybody's got to share in the blame. You win as a team, you lose as a team, and they got to look to each other now and see if they can make it a series next game tomorrow night.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just getting a message via our correspondence that Dan Silver is wrapped up in a business meeting and will not be able to make it tonight. So, Shep, it's you and me. We're going to have Amy Johnson at about 5. But, on that, continuing along that, a little bit of a deeper look at the series and maybe some things from last night's game. Brian Boucher really brought up a good point when he talked about how the New York Islanders have this cohesiveness as a 5-man unit with steady support all over the ice. And it's probably the difference between the two teams. This is what the Flyers have been most of the year, but the Flyers have looked slower. The Flyers have looked more tentative, have made more critical mistakes at really inopportune times. And I think the Flyers are being forced into some of this, and even when they're not, it's so in their heads because they're getting outplayed by such a wide margin that they are making mistakes. Even like last night when Phil Myers tried to execute what they call a high flip, which is basically lobbing the puck out of the zone. Well, it failed. He didn't get, enough composite on it, if you will. And that results in the Brock Nelson goal. And, overall, their puck protection and management has been subpar. Most of the Montreal series and practically all of this series. And, so after that, Coots tips home Justin Braun took a shot?
Yes.
Yeah, and Braun actually had a good night last night.
Yeah.
I haven't really been impressed with him, but in every metric he was very good, and the eye test was good too. But overall, not really impressed with him or Niskanen. And then we get into the third period, like I talked about with that. And once they had that screw up, the Islanders took advantage of a couple coverage mistakes and breakdowns and some other unforced errors, and there she wrote. I mean, the Flyers got an empty net goal with about a minute left. Now they're down 3-1 and could be eliminated tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And that's we're going to have to talk about, what do they need to do to come back. And of course, you see AV is out there today, and he said something that was very interesting, and I want to try to get that, because we hit it on our account, and I think it was just appealed to their pride, because he talked about taking one game at a time, right? But you know what else he said, and it really stuck out for me, and he talked about their legacy, and I'm trying to dig up this tweet, like right here, and he said, "This is a great opportunity for our leadership group to change the narrative, change their legacy." And he knows what's going on.
Exactly.
Right. And he knows that the Flyers' current core, what's left of it, now that they've paired off Shen and Simmons and some of the other guys, that it's really Giroux, Voracek, and Couturier. And Couturier is obviously the heir apparent as a captain and a leader, and it speaks to what could happen in the off season. But we want to get a deeper analysis for you and find out if there's a way back home for the Philadelphia Flyers in this series, and we'll go from there. And then we'll do some sneak peek stuff for you, because it's all over Twitter now. Chef, they have them like the series over, and they're already moving players. And I'm a little bit guilty of that when I suggested that, and we'll get into it later, about certain guys after this year. Really, you can't justify, after Fletcher seemed to kind of piece this thing together for one more run with this group. It doesn't seem like you can justify everybody being here, but yeah, we'll take a look at that.
But one thing I thought that AV could have done in the game last night, and maybe it's just me, and Jamie Bascal had pointed out from Nitty Gritty, He goes, I would have called a timeout. I would have pointed up to where Oscar was sitting and said to them, this is what we play for. This is who we play for. Be a effing Flyer and get out there and turn this game around. I mean, if they
at what juncture, what point of the game last night?
I think when they had a perfect chance when they were down 2-1. Uh-huh. I think after that, I just think it was a perfect opportunity. Maybe not like, I think when they got lucky on that post shot. I would have, the next stoppage of play, I would have sat there and I would have done something along those lines. Personally, I thought that was interesting that he came up with the same analogy, because I was fidgeting in my chair after seeing him skate in the warm-ups, and I was like, I haven't seen anything. And finally, Bill Meltzer tweeted out like 5 minutes before the game, he is not playing. It was just a practice, it was likely. But if that little bit of just seeing him in a uniform got me all fired up, I can only imagine what it did for his teammates. So that's what bothers me. The drive to win. I don't know if it's there. They haven't played like you said, like a team. It seems like everybody's out there doing their own little thing, whereas the line, they have flashes of where the line clicks together, but they don't have flashes where a team clicks together. And when I say flashes, you want a controlled effort. The game plan, it seems like everybody's missing their coverage. I don't know how many times there was. I stopped counting. I think at 3 last night in a game when there was 2 on none for Elliott in front of the net when the puck went into the corner.
Yeah,
somebody's obviously missing their assignments.
Yeah,
and then you got the crazy people out there clamoring for, give Frost a chance, bring him up. Frost couldn't cover its defensive assignments when he came up the first time.
We got Amy Johnson calling in. Sorry for the interruption, but I hear you with the defensive assignments. So we are joined by Amy Johnson, who is the credentialed hockey reporter covering the Flyers, the Habs, the AHL Phantoms, the Laval Rocket, for the AHL Report as part of Rocket Sports Media. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Always happy to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me back again so soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're capable probably of being a little more objective than we are.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. We've kind of treaded water through the first 4 games here, and I guess we're kind of looking for a deeper analysis about the overall tenor of play. I mean, just to catch you up from what our impressions, just me at least, that I think up until last night, the Flyers have lost 2 out of every 3 periods. It was more even last night, but even then, the Islanders were opportunistic, and the Flyers made critical errors at inopportune times and ended up losing the game last night. And it seems like this is just the Islanders are just further along their learning curve with their coach and the way they're set up than the Flyers.
Barry Trotz has a very effective system. Every single one of his players has obviously bought into it, and that's why he's able to be effective rolling all 4 lines, and not only able to roll them all, but they're consistent and they're performing consistently night after night. And you're right, up until last night's play, really, the Flyers would have a good period in each game, but that's not enough. I mean, even in the regular season, that's not enough, but certainly not in the second round of the playoffs. You look at that first game where the first period of the first game of this series was an absolute disaster for Philadelphia. I mean, the Islanders just, not that the series against the Canadiens was all that easy, but the Islanders just steamrolled them in that first 20 minutes. And then it was a complete 180 in the second. The ice tilted the complete other way, but they couldn't maintain that. They couldn't sustain it. And to get shut out in that first game of the series, I mean, that's a big hit to take in game 1. But then you come back in game 2, right, and my goodness, that first period, you go up 3-0, you chase Varlamov, and you let that slip away. And I mean, thank God for Philippe Myers, who's able to get it in the back of the net in overtime. But imagine if they had lost that game in overtime. Yeah. To have had a 3-0 lead and let it just slip away. And you're right. It's been, if there's one thing that they've been consistent at, it's that they can't be consistent. They can't maintain a certain level of intensity or sticking to a system and sticking to what works for the full 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing was, they brought more bacon in that second period last night, a little bit into the beginning of the third period. And then again, we were talking about the miscommunication with Elliott. It started a sequence of shifts where the Islanders kind of took over the game, and then the Flyers scored an empty net goal. It was too little too late, and they're down 3-1. But that hockey in that second period might have been the best Flyers hockey that they played since they've returned to play.
Absolutely. And a key part of that is Sean Couturier gets on the score sheet. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and you could hear it night after night when Giroux comes to the microphone and Voracek comes to the microphone and Coots comes to the microphone and Konechny comes to the microphone, they're frustrated as anything. And they're pretty tired of getting asked about being frustrated, to be quite honest. But Vigneault keeps saying we have to play better than we did last night. Well, as of tomorrow night, time's out. They have to, and Vigneault has now gotten down to calling out that top six. He said 2 days ago, our top end guys have got to start performing like top end guys. And okay, so last night Couturier finally found it. You know, Giroux didn't get on the score sheet last night, but he had some flashes of productivity and making plays that were helping to contribute elsewhere on the ice.
Right.
Konechny's just been absolutely snake bitten through this entire playoffs. But they have to. There's got to be something that's going to break that dam. I think once the dam gets broke, I was hoping that was going to happen last night after Couturier scored. That once that dam broke, that maybe it would start coming, and it didn't. But they only have 60 more minutes of hockey to make that happen. I think if they can't get those top six guys going, I don't know that they survive tomorrow night.
No.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said two things that really scared me right when you said it. You said that Islanders, the Islanders bought it, that their players bought into Trotz's system, and you know that kind of scares me because it kind of insinuates that some of the Flyers have not bought into AV's system. And I was just wondering if you could maybe elaborate or debunk what that made me think.
Well, I'll certainly debunk that. I didn't mean to insinuate that the Flyers weren't bought into AV's system. I think AV has been one of the best additions to the Flyers organization in recent years. I think that what he brings experience-wise, along with his assistant coaches, has been paramount to the Flyers' success this year. I think his systems are working. He understands particularly his experience in the playoffs. And he was asked that it was either last night or today. Every day is blurring together at this point. But was asked, you've experienced success in coming back from being down 3-1 in a series when you were with the Rangers. Is that going to help you now? And he said, well, yeah, I know how I have to talk to my guys now to help make that happen. So I think what AV is doing is correct. And I think I'm confident that the Flyers have bought into it. For some reason, they're just not executing it perfectly the way Barry Trotz's team is. Now, perhaps the difference there is that Barry Trotz has a young team of players who you look at the roster and you say, who are half these guys? It's not like he's got a lineup of superstars. Not necessarily that Vigneault has a lineup of all superstars, but he's got kind of young guys and guys that have a lot of experience. And so maybe it's just that age gap difference that they're not being able to consistently execute that system and really all get on the same page at the same time the way Trotz has the Islanders working.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that extra year makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were speculating earlier about some of the pieces that the Flyers have had now that, Fletcher did his tinkering over the season, in the off season, to what they are now. But you see, I mean, some of the things Bill Meltzer was pointing out, the Flyers don't seem to have anybody who can physically match up with Anders Lee or Brock Nelson.
No.
And that, for the most part, Konechny and Giroux, until the last game, I think, were really satisfied with being on the perimeter. And the Islanders are just, they're a nasty team to play against. And
mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, what are some of the, and maybe you can comment about that, maybe some of the things the Flyers can do, and maybe what are some of the changes you've noticed that AV has made, subtle or otherwise, besides the personnel, that where you could see he's trying to do things a little bit differently, like whether it's zone entries, dump-ins, or what have you?
Aside from the personnel, I will say I think it's unfortunate. This is purely speculation, but I think Michael Raffl is nursing an injury. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be out of 2 games the way he has been. So I think that's forcing AV into making some decisions. And I certainly don't fault him for going with Moose last night instead of Carter Hart. I don't think Carter Hart in the net would have made a difference in last night's game. Either way, I don't think they would have. I don't think that Brian Elliott being in between the pipes last night was the reason that they lost, particularly in that power play in the first period. I like Carter Hart. He's got a lot of confidence, but there have been moments, not only in this series but in the playoffs, where he's looked a little unsure. And so the peppering that Elliott took last night during that power play, I'm sure Hart would have been up to the task, but Brian Elliott was huge in making sure that they got through that power play.
Right.
But more to your question, as far as what Vigneault's doing, what I appreciate that he does well, and it's something similar that the Canadians actually saw once Kirk Muller had to take over behind the bench when Claude Julien went out with his heart issues during that series. I think Vigneault's ability to make in-game decisions is very solid. I think he reads the game well as it's happening. I think he does a good job of, some coaches can be duly criticized for putting their team through a line blender in the middle of a game and it not doing anything. I think Vigneault is effective when he does it. And I think those are the things, he sees matchups that aren't working and he fixes it. There's been some I've questioned. Nate Thompson could spend a little less time on the ice when, and there's times that I have frankly thought that about Derek Grant too. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, my criticism would be, I think he needs to shorten the bench a little bit when that fourth line isn't working. That being said, when JVR, when he does play on the fourth, I think that JVR is one of those keys. I think, we talk a lot about the Girouxs and the Voraceks and the Couturiers and the Konechnys. JVR is a guy that has the size. We talk about matching up against Anders Lee. JVR has size. JVR has skating ability. JVR can shoot, and he's not using a lot of that. And I think that is an unfortunate piece of the puzzle that if he could get his game going, could open things up. Now, granted, that new look third line with Lawton in the center, and JVR on his wing has been better the last two nights. So maybe that's the combination that needs to work. But to your original question, for me, the biggest thing that Alain Vigneault does well from a coaching standpoint, aside from his gamesmanship in press conferences, which he has been exceptional at, as far as getting the other team riled up or fan bases riled up, and he does that very well. But his in-game decisions, I think, are really, really effective.
Mm-hmm. Some of the other things I've noticed in this series, there haven't been a ton of power plays, but I think the Islanders are like 2 for 7, the Flyers are 0 for 5 in their in their attempts as well, and it just seems like the Flyers need something. You talk about JVR, the comment that you made about him, I was just thinking to myself, that could be a narrative for his entire career, except that he never. That was one of the reasons they traded him. I remember the guy out in Edmonton, I can't think of his name, was talking about how at the time the Flyers thought JVR was a little soft. It was it was a horrible trade for Luke Schenn, but to get a guy like him or Travis going, because hockey's such a confidence game. Then they start. You move him up a line. Everything he touches, it turns to gold, and that's what the Flyers are kind of hoping for, a kind of hockey Hail Mary.
I think so, and unfortunately, they're at a point that they have to stop counting on a Hail Mary working. Like we said, tomorrow night is do or die, and there's been enough of the, oh, well, we keep looking at tape and we know what's wrong and we're watching video and we're just working on it and it's just not clicking. Well, those excuses have to go away. They just have to figure it out. They know how to do it. It's a little, Claude Giroux got really kind of had the screws put to him today at media availability. I don't remember who it was who asked him, but basically presented him with, not only have you not been effective in this, I'm paraphrasing here, of course, it was said much more diplomatically, but was asked, not only have you basically not been effective or productive in these playoffs, but the same could be said of previous playoff appearances for you. And they asked him, do you think the issues you're having in this series are just due to this series, or is this a playoff issue for you in general? And I thought that was it's a bit bold to Claude Giroux today. And
you remember who asked him that one?
I don't. I'd have to go back and look at the video.
That's not funny for Claude. Yeah.
It wasn't. I don't think that it was one of the Philly beat guys. Like it wasn't Sam Carchidi or Bill Meltzer or Jordan Hall, or it wasn't any of them, or Charlie O'Connor or anybody like that.
Yeah, 1 goal in 25 last 25 goal playoff games. Problem is since 2012, the Flyers have been sporadic in the playoffs. Both Giroux and Voracek have been spotty with their point production, and he just hasn't scored.
No, and I don't think he obviously doesn't have the answer. He has said that. He said, if I had the answer, we wouldn't be having the conversation. If I had the answer for why it's not happening, he had some looks last night. He had that diving attempt at a.
She's still connected. I see that.
Yeah. I mean, Giroux had a couple great shifts on a couple. I think he had a really good shift on the empty net goal, which you would expect, and certainly the big shift that led to the goal by Phil Myers in overtime in Game 2 that won the game. But it's just been sporadic. So, hopefully we can get reconnected with Amy. We've had problems all night with some stuff. It's been a challenge, but we'll keep going here. So review the schedule. Tomorrow night it's do or die. If the Flyers are capable of winning, then they can make it for Thursday. I'm not sure what time that would be. Probably 7 or 8 the way that things are running. And then Saturday, if there was a 7th game, that we could. Then if there was some miracle, it'll happen Saturday night or Saturday during the day, and then everybody will be happy. And but I'm not counting on it. Jeff, are you counting on a comeback?
No, I'd sure like to see one, and I really had a couple more questions for Amy, so I hope we can get her back.
I am back. I am so
good.
Oh, good.
The power just went out in my house, so of course the power for some reason just flashed on and off, which meant my computer shut off. So thankfully my cell phone still works. So I am back. So
yes, sorry. Fantastic. You were saying it was Claude was.
Oh, he had that diving play right on the doorstep where Grease was and Grease just happened to get a glove on it. They both kind of dove across for it at the same time. Claude just got the heel of his stick on it. If Grease hadn't managed to get over, maybe that had gone in. So the effort is there. He's making those attempts. It's just not going in the net. For me, the big issue is you had both backup goaltenders last night, and Grease obviously was the more successful of the two. But in the game where they chased Varlamov, Grease comes in, and instead of taking advantage of that situation, they allow them to crawl back in and tie that game. That to me is a little concerning, that both times that the Islanders have put their backup goaltender in, and it's not unlike Vigneault, who's been giving Elliott some reps more here and there. Grease wasn't getting that, so I'm not sure why the Flyers didn't absolutely do everything they could to disturb him and get him off of his game in those two situations where they could have used that to their advantage.
But that's just it. I mean, just the exact opposite of the Islanders, just crowding the front of the net with Lee and Nelson, like we were talking about earlier. The Flyers have not had a steady net front presence, except when you think about the empty net goal. Of course, you're going to have men in front there, and then the Myers goal in Game 2 that won them the game. But that hasn't been a consistent force here. It's really, I think this is a contest of wills in a lot of way. in a lot of ways. And the Islanders are clearly winning, except in isolated incidents.
I would agree with you there. And it's not that the Flyers don't want it. I don't know if at this point they're just, to use a terrible hockey cliche, if they're gripping the stick too tightly because they're so frustrated, if those top six guys are so frustrated that they've not done anything on the scoreboard, that they're trying to, because that isn't, that's the problem that you get on the other end of the pendulum, right? Is that when things aren't going your way and you get more desperate and that continues to compound on top of itself, then you see it with younger players, with prospects a lot, that then they try to do too much and that works against them, and it just slides them farther back down the hill. Ironically, the young guys seem to be handling themselves just fine. It's a lot of the veterans that are having difficulty. So I honestly, I wish they would figure out what needs to be done, and put together. Can they win 3 in a row now against this Islanders team? I don't know. I really don't know. I think the last time we talked, I had mentioned that I kind of have the Islanders winning this series, unfortunately. But I'd like to see them get out of this with more than one win. I think, they really need to come up with a W tomorrow night.
Yeah. Actually, last week's show we had Dan on. Dan has a business thing tonight. He couldn't make it, but I was the only one of the three of us that picked the Islanders. And I just foresaw some of this. Of course, I picked a lot of other series wrong, so it's not like yay me or anything. I'm not being Barry Horowitz tapping myself on the back, but this is what I was concerned of. I said they look more efficient, they look faster, and guys like Barzal looks like a star. Beauvillier always kills them. They have problems with Brock Nelson and Anders Lee, and they're getting. I'm not crazy about their defense, but they're very efficient. I think the Flyers should do a better job of getting the puck behind them, but the Flyers have virtually no forecheck. The Islanders are just keeping the bottle. The Flyers bottled up in the zone. The Flyers can't even get their own offense going, and that's it. Everything begins with you getting out of your zone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Amy, the Islanders are overloading. We said this earlier. It looks like the reverse is there or something, because the Islanders seem to always be outnumbering the Flyers, even in their own D zone.
It is. When I look back through my notes for every game in this series, I see the phrase "hemmed in their own zone" entirely too many times on each page.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's just the constant. That if you can count on one thing, it's that they're always going to be pinned in their own zone and can't get out. They're also, because they're trying to push plays, they're trying to force plays. You've got D who are pinching badly, and then you get caught out. And it's as I was just saying, when you try to do too much, a lot of times you can shoot yourself in the foot. And that's exactly what some of the guys in today's media availability said. They used the words, "We're shooting ourselves in the foot." That a lot of the goals that the Islanders are getting are because of mistakes that we're making, not necessarily because the Islanders have earned those goals. It's that we're giving them to them. If they can get that through their thick skulls for tomorrow and cut down on those kinds of mistakes, maybe they have a better chance at coming out with a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my concern has been this. When you said we saw Grice, and they didn't really challenge him after he came in in relief of Varlamov, they didn't really challenge him at all. I mean, I'm guessing, I don't know the actual number, but shots on net maybe 6, 7. So I was hoping that going into last night's game, that, all right, you have your backup goalie. This is the prime example of getting shots to the net and winning those battles in the corners and along the boards. I mean, their board work was horrible, I thought, and I had raised that question up, I think, when you were on our show at Montreal, that Montreal, they were barely eking out Montreal when they were fighting along the boards with them, barely eking them out. And, talking about putting shifts together is, that scares me because you'll see like that line you talked about with JVR and Lawton and Pitlick. They go out there, they put on a great thing. The Flyers could never follow up a second line, the second shift after that great pressure. They
Right.
wouldn't. It would just be like, oh well, I guess somebody else is going to pick it up. Now you might see flutters of that line again, like we did again last night. JVR's line, they have a good shift, they come off, and
Tonight is dropout night.
Apparently it is.
It really is. But yeah, I know, Amy, that you're in on
a good night.
Okay,
Yeah.
We lost you there. Amy is actually on a tight schedule tonight because I think you have your show or something else coming up. I just before you left us for tonight, I just want to run something by you.
All right.
Okay. Now this is it's a little bit of a zinger. Okay.
Uh-oh. Right.
I'm going to give you a name. No, looking
boy.
forward a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give you a name, and you just give me a yes or a no whether you think they'll be here next year. And we're only going to do this for 6 players. I don't want to concentrate too much of when the Flyers still have a puncher's chance of pulling this thing out. So let's go so we can get you out of here on time.
No problem. I'll do my best.
Okay. Claude Giroux.
Yes.
Jake Voracek.
Yes.
JVR.
No.
Shane Gostisbehere.
No.
Matt Niskanen.
Yes.
Justin Braun.
No.
Okay.
I think, and I'll explain a little bit of that. I think Giroux and Voracek are too vital to the franchise at this point. I don't see them. Not that this organization isn't afraid of dealing big names, but I don't think they're at it. Even if all is said and done and they don't make it past this round, the Flyers have had a very successful season this year. They've made it to the second round of the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and they have looked very good under Alain Vigneault's first season behind the bench. So they're not in retool and shake up the entire lineup and make big changes mode yet. So that's why I think Giroux and Voracek stay. JVR could be before he has another meh season, you might deal him now. You might package him and deal him now while he still has some value. Gostisbehere is kind of in the same boat. I mean, Gostisbehere's name has been on the trade block rumor lists for at least
2
a
years
year now. Yeah. Everyone keeps saying he's going to go to Montreal. I don't know that that'll happen. I don't know that he'd fit in well in Montreal, but who knows? But I think that Ghost has looked decent in the games that he's gotten in on, but I don't see him. I see them using him more as a trading chip. And at this point, I think you just got to get rid of Braun. Niski's got enough experience. I think his maturity and his playoff experience has actually been pretty. My guess is it's been pretty relied upon in the room during this playoffs, and so I think that's the kind of leadership that they'd want to keep around.
All right. Yeah, Braun had a good game last night, but I think Niskanen with 1 year left on the deal. Maybe he drops down to a second pair. Maybe Phil Myers is ready to assume his role as a top pairing guy, but I guess we'll see from as we move along here. Amy, why don't you give your contact information? And again, appreciate you so much for doing this.
No, I very much appreciate the invitation. As I've said on Twitter, it's always a great conversation with you guys. You do a great job with the show. If folks want to follow along with our coverage, you can find me on Twitter at FlyersRule, or you can just follow along with. We have a whole bunch of different Twitter accounts. I mean, our Twitter family is pretty big, but the 3 main places you can find us is either at Rocket Sports, at the AHL Report or at the Flyers Report. Any one of those places, you'll find us in our coverage, and we don't take a week off. So we'll even if they leave this week, we'll still be providing coverage.
Terrific. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. It's been great, and you guys stay safe.
All right, you take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chef, so there you go. What are your thoughts about what Amy had to say?
I pretty much agree with a lot of it. I would question one thing about Niski though. I'm wondering if he blocked a lot of shots in the Montreal series. Maybe he's playing a little hurt. Maybe that's that case. I would think Konecny might be playing a little hurt too. I mean, the team blocks a lot of shots, and I think that part's catching up to him. But pretty much everything that she said was pretty spot on. Yeah,
Niskanen, I never really considered that they would move him. He's got a year left. It's perfect. That gives them the time to bring along guys like Zamula or possibly Cam York. So, sure, that's understandable. Braun, I just think that he's going to price himself out. And frankly, until last night, I haven't been impressed with what he's done. Niskanen really hasn't recovered since he got back. I don't know if he had an injury. He just hasn't looked good since they came into the bubble. I don't know how they're going to get rid of JVR. They're going to have maybe package a draft pick or a player. And Ghost, I think, I just don't see a pathway for him to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with Giroux and Voracek. Now, Giroux has next year and one more after that. So he's got 2 left. I think Jake's got 4 left. If Jake is actually playing more, closer to his prime, I don't know. Is it time to shake this thing up if they don't make a comeback? It's something we'll explore, obviously, if the Flyers bow out. But I just wanted to preview that because the fans want some of that talk. They're already getting revved up to the off-season conversation.
The funny one is literally trading Giroux. I mean, I'm not saying you can't change Giroux, trade him, but unless he wants to go somewhere, he's not going anywhere. So because he has that clause. So you gotta everybody's gotta sit there and realize that. You could just get rid of him like crazy out there, but if he doesn't want to go, he's not going.
No. Yeah, and you have to wonder, can you really make the case that he's a first-line player anymore? I don't think so. He's played to like a third-line level, really, in these playoffs, and I know it's kind of arbitrary, but he's probably no better than the second-line talent right now, based on what we're seeing. And look, that's just the way it goes. I don't think it's from a lack of effort or concentration or what have you. It just is. So we'll obviously explore stuff like that as things move along, and we'll be back when the series has been determined. Because, like I said earlier, tomorrow night, Thursday, and Saturday. After Saturday, at the latest, we'll know what goes on around the league. One thing that you should know, we have some elimination scenarios, including the Flyers. So they're all at elimination point right now. Tampa has just had that extra gear and that toughness that they haven't had. And, of course, the Bruins lost their goalie, Tuukka Rask. As soon as he went out, I had picked Boston to win the Cup. But when they lost Tuukka Rask, who has some family issues, which is understandable, I don't know if it was health or what have you, I really moved toward favoring Tampa. Vegas won last night in a tough game. Vancouver's pesky. You can see they're going to be a team on the come. I don't know if you caught any of those games.
I caught a couple of the Vegas games.
He got some supreme talent.
Yeah, it was. I knew it was going to be a fun series just because I knew, like you said, Vegas is definitely a better team, but you can see all the young talent and I guess orneriness is a good term for the Canucks there. That they would make it an interesting season, if not series, if anything else.
Yeah, I mean you got Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Besser and guys like that. Besser apparently made some big mistake last night, but these are going to happen with the kids. And then Markstrom, they're probably going to re-sign him, and I forget they got a really top prospect behind him who's not quite ready yet, who's backing him up. So watch for the Vancouver Canucks. I do think that Vegas is going to take this series, and they are going to. It's probably going to be them in Tampa. We'll see. Maybe Dallas will shock. Dallas is all their guys. They're big guns and everything. They're just. Once Colorado lost their goaltender, they got some other injuries, and just Dallas got the jump on them, and they got the mojo. They got that look of a team that's going to maybe surprise people. They're just playing, and they're up 3-1 as well. So we could have the conference finals be Vegas versus Dallas if things hold, and obviously the Islanders facing Tampa. The Islanders are good. They're not Tampa, and the Islanders' goaltending would really be tested there because the Islanders' goaltending's good enough. There's a reason they can't wait for Sorokin to come in the next year. And so Cano and Tampa winning that one. Maybe a big shock. Maybe Trotz has something up his sleeve. And then Vegas and Dallas, unless Dallas has some magic sauce, to me that's like thin gruel. I think Vegas is fated to get to the Stanley Cup final again and play Tampa. And we'll take it from there, and I guess injuries will determine what's what. And, of course, we'll find out on closeout day from the Flyers whether guys like Niskanen and some of the players like Konechny are battling injuries. And yeah, any other impressions about these playoffs? Chef, do we have you here? Well, we're having one of these nights, people, and I really apologize for that. You get tired of listening to me. Let me move on until we get Chef back in the house here, and just remark on the trade that was made in the Metro Division between. Oh, we got you.
Yeah, it kept cracking in and out there. Do you hear me?
I don't know what it is. My connection's solid, but the Skype is who we use, and it's been a rough night. Yeah. Any other thoughts about the playoffs before we move to the Pens Leafs trade and wrap things up for tonight?
No, the only thing was I thought that they're shaping up pretty much how, I thought it was going to go, except for the Avalanche there. Losing their goalie, like you said. I thought they're a team that's fairly well put together. They could use a little D. Maybe that's a home for Shane Gossip here. Who knows? Defense and goalies, I think that's what they collapse, and I think that's the only surprise to me that they got hurt. So, yeah,
I think that once they got the momentum, and like I said, Dallas got the mojo. That was they had to jump on them, and so it looks like it's going to be Dallas with Vegas and Tampa and the Islanders right now. Then again, if you have 4 series at 3-1, you figure one of these could turn around and end up being a shocker. So that's why we watch, right? So one last item on the agenda tonight is a trade that the Leafs made with the Penguins. The Penguins get Kasperi Kapanen, a player I've always liked, but he's kind of like an F6, 7, 8 kind of forward. Nice player, right wing. Jesper Lindgren and Pontus Aberg. And back to the Maple Leafs, who get back into the draft with the 15th overall pick from the Penguins, along with Evan Rodriguez, David Warsofsky, and maybe an under-the-radar key player in the deal, Philip Hallander, a really good prospect at center. I think he's more of a mid-6 kind of guy. And he could make a difference in the trade as to whether, it really tilts more toward the Leafs. But obviously the Leafs, mainly, while they like Hallander, and it was an important part of the trade, the most important thing is getting that first pick, the 15th overall, which should be a good player for them, and comparing that to the Penguins getting Kasperi Kapanen, who, by the way, was originally drafted by the Penguins. So they always had the lust for Sammy's son. And so he's going to be playing in the black and gold next year.
Well, it looks like the Penguins are trying to stay relevant. They got a lot of retooling to do down the line, but and so with the Maple Leafs too. But I think it works out fairly good for both teams. I think this is one of those trades that'll be pretty good for both sides, don't you think?
Yeah, I like the Leafs end of it a little bit better because the Leafs had to sacrifice. The Leafs are going to make a big play for a right shot defenseman, and the one everybody's talking about is Alex Pietrangelo. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, it would be great to send Ghost and get a player, but I think the Leafs are going to hold on to assets until they get that right shot defenseman who's a top pairing guy. For me, that looks like the biggest thing the Leafs are going to concentrate on. I think they're going to keep Frederik Andersen. I don't think there's that many upgrades out there that are going to be much better than him. Let's do a better job in front of him is probably the philosophy. So I would look for somebody like William Nylander to move on, and we'll have to see how that works out. And also keep your eye on Philip Hallander. That's a player that I wouldn't be surprised that is really was an important part of the deal as well. So, well, Chef, it's been a challenging night with the technical stuff, and I apologize, everybody. It can be unpredictable out there in the summer, the late summer with the storms and everything, and as you heard with Amy, with her power getting cut off. So I'm Isaiah, and you can catch me on Twitter, Isaiah, ISAIAH _520 Isaiah. Don't forget the _ 520. And Chef, where can people contact you?
You can catch me on Twitter at Chef to the Left B.
Fantastic. And of course, please follow us on Twitter at the O&B Puckcast, at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. We're on 7 platforms, including Apple, SoundCloud, iHeart, Spotify, Google. Let me see what else we got. TuneIn, Stitcher. We have a YouTube. And you can link up to us through the fourthperiod.com if you're on their page. It's a fine site. So with that, I just wanted to close with one thing, which I scrupulously avoided. The players took some time off in between games 2 and 3 for social issues. I made the decision for the podcast to kind of keep that to my account in terms of my feelings about it. And I understand that the players are trying to do something that causes change. I also understand that people love the police and we need them. We can't just throw them aside, and we don't want to make snap judgments about things that happen based on a 20 or 30-second video clip. As we see with many of these incidents, we don't understand police are forced to use protocols. We don't know what happened before and sometimes after what we see. And I hope the players are cognizant of that. And they can balance what they're saying, what I'm hearing so far, the kind of like LeBron James influence narrative, with the realities of people really being hurt right now during a pandemic and economic crisis that resulted. That, part of what they're doing is to help us get through that and to not lose that. And I think that's kind of where Bruce Arians was coming from, the Tampa Bay coach, ex-coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And I think there's a lot to recommend in what he said. And guys like Jason Whitlock, and we all want a better world, a better life. I think the players have to realize that we don't want to tilt at windmills. We have to identify what's real and maybe take a more appropriate venue for doing so. And make sure that when we back a cause or something, make sure there are solutions in there, real solutions that are practical for everybody. And this is a great country. We want to keep it that way. I know the players feel that way, and I love those guys. I love that they feel that way. I really do. But I also believe that we need a mature approach and one that keeps everybody's concerns in mind, not just the people with the loudest platforms. So, Chef, you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think you stated it best. Just, be good to everybody. That's the whole thing. I'm not gonna preach a sermon, but there was always, growing up, we always heard my where I went to school, and I went to Catholic parochial school, so it was, do unto others as you would have done to you. And I kind of live my life like that. I treat everybody like a friend until they're not, and that's it. And I never assume the worst out of people. I always assume the best in people, and that's how I live my life.
Yep, I can definitely agree with that. My motto has always been, you may have prejudices, we all have them, but give the man a chance. That's the way. I always say that to myself. If I'm not impressed with somebody, or if I had a bad impression, regardless of any reason, give the man a chance. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is one of the worst mistakes you could ever make. Always remember that. That's a motto that historically will always lead you in the right direction. And with that, folks, until episode number 87, coming at you sometime within the next week, it will be good night. Let's hope the Flyers can extend this thing for the sake of pride only.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody.